Hey everyone, so I'm here in eastern Pennsylvania at Hopewell Furnace National Historic Park, and this is the site of an old iron furnace that was in service for over a century, from the 1770s to about the 1880s. And I'm going to take a look around at some of the historic structures and see where they made all this iron. Alright, so now I'm in the house that served as the ironmaster's mansion. Looks like I'm in the dining room. There's only a few rooms that you can go in at the moment. The upstairs is closed off, but the house was expanded over the years as each ironmaster added on for their needs, like bigger families and servants and stuff. So this building is the general store. So there's the counter over here, and this is where furnace employees would have come to get their various supplies that they needed. A couple old stoves back here. And apparently the company store did not rip off employees like many other places would have. Prices here were normal market value for stuff. So the site would have basically been all self-contained. Employees could have gotten what they needed here and lived here. And I believe next door is the bulk bins. I'll go check those out. So in here were the bulk bins for the company store that I was just in. So to keep all the grains of like corn and wheat and rye and stuff like that for the furnace employees. So this building behind me is where the charcoal was kept. And workers would take wheelbarrow loads of charcoal across the way here over to the furnace. And apparently it used, there's a sign over here, 15 bushels of charcoal, 400 to 500 pounds of iron ore, and 30 to 40 pounds of limestone every half hour, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's a lot of raw materials. So this is the top of the furnace. Over here, this hole with the grate over it is where the raw materials would have been dumped into. Just successive layers of those three materials, and I guess they would work their way down as they burn from the bottom, stoked by cold air brought in from the water mill, and then that would melt the iron down at the bottom, and the iron would come out down there. And I think I can get down there somehow, check that out. But so back and forth from the barn where I just was over to here with all those loads of raw materials all day. It must have been grueling work. All right, so this structure behind me is the anthracite furnace, and apparently it was a variation of a furnace for smelting the iron. It was short-lived. I guess the expense was too high, so they moved the operation somewhere else, but the structure stayed. And it's impressive. I mean, the top of the furnace there is gotta be 20-25 feet high, and it's pretty thick. Like, it's, I don't know, 10 feet thick at the base at least. And it's got all these, I'm not sure what these openings are at the bottom, but you can kind of walk through it. And then there's a kind of a walled trench going around the whole structure. It's actually pretty cool. I want to climb these walls. I could totally do it. Some good handholds. I just need a rope. There's this little channel in the rock. This is a neat structure. I still want to climb it. Yeah, so apparently this was not a major part of the operations here. But I'm sure after they moved the operations, I forget what they said, somewhere east of here, I think, that they just left the structure because it was too big to really do anything with. So this area behind me is a charcoal pit, and this is where guys referred to as colliers would tend piles of wood and burn them over the course of 10 days, 2 weeks to make charcoal. And apparently that's how long it takes for the wood to char completely without actually burning up. And they would be tended around the clock, and those guys lived in these little conical huts so they could keep a close eye on it. And it only took 2 or 3 guys to tend to like up to 9 charcoal pits in the surrounding area. So these are the ruins of some charcoal kilns that they tried using to make the process more efficient for making charcoal. But apparently it wasn't very successful, so they stuck to the charcoal pits that I just showed you behind there. After the charcoal was made, it would be brought over to the storage barn here. So now I'm in the area where the wagons would have taken the charcoal, which you can still see the pit in the background here, to the storage barn. This is one of the wagons. And they would get dumped into the barn through these windows. And then the charcoal would be stored there until it was needed in the furnace, which is on the other side of this building. And I was reading some of these wagons, in the process of pulling the charcoal over here, if anything ever ignited and caught on fire, they could pull boards out of the bottom of the wagon and drain all the charcoal that wasn't on fire out, so they could save part of the load. Because apparently once the charcoal catches on fire, it's not good for anything for furnace purposes. So now I'm entering the cast house, which is where the furnace is and where they would melt the iron ore. This is basically the centerpiece of the park. It's kind of why the park is here. So a lot of the original building apparently has been rebuilt and restored, because after it ended operations in the 1880s, the property kind of fell into disrepair. So it wasn't until the 1960s, when the park took over, that the building was restored. But this structure behind me, the furnace, is original. So all the bricks, all that survived. And this is where I was on top of, and I showed the hole where they poured the raw material into. And then the iron ore would come out the bottom, or the melted iron, molten iron, I should say, would come out and be used for various things. Either it was made into pig iron, which would just be iron bars that would be sent elsewhere for further processing. They also did a lot of casting here for like stove plates and pans, and they were saying, a ranger was saying that during the Revolution, they know cannons were tested here, and they were pretty sure that the cannons were actually made here as well, like casted here from iron from the furnace. So that's pretty neat. And then around the corner here is the water wheel. All right, so behind me is the water wheel, and this was used for pushing air into the furnace. I don't know if you can make it out, but on the side of the wheel, there's a crank that goes up to these tubs on either side. And those are called blowing tubs. So the wheel would basically pump air into those tubs, pressurizing it. And then there's a tank in the middle, you can see right here, that would take the air from both tubs and equalize them. And then from there, down this pipe and down into here, would pump air continuously into the bottom of the furnace, stoking the heat and getting it hot up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like a substantial percentage of the surface of the sun temperature. And that's where they would melt the iron ore. So over here in the corner, there's a collection of some of the stuff that would have been cast here. Little stove plates and pans and stuff like that. So this box is referred to as a flask, I believe they called it. And that's what they used to cast items in, such as the stove plates and pans and whatnot. They had sand in there that they packed in, and then basically made a mold in the sand and poured the molten iron into it. So this looks like it was the workshop side of things. The furnace is right over here, and it looks like there's just a bunch of flasks of various sizes. I was also reading that during the restoration, the construction was done by Amish using historical building methods. So the restoration, a lot of this is not period, but it is period accurate as far as its techniques and how it was built. So here's a look at the outside of the furnace. This is the flume heading toward the water wheel, and it's pretty dry at the moment. So this is basically a little aqueduct. It's raised up over the ground. On this side, it goes back on the solid ground, and I believe this was called a raceway. So this would have been a man-made way for the water to get from its source down to the water wheel. So this little building next to the furnace is the blacksmith shop. And over here you can see the forge and giant bellows. The thing's probably 5 feet long and at least 3 feet wide. So here they would have made horseshoes and nails and hoes and axes and hammers and stuff for the furnace, and they would sell them in the company store as well. So the park actually raises sheep and cattle. See a small flock of sheep, one right here next to me. And Ranger was telling me that these sheep are actually a historic breed, that they're trying to keep the lineage going that would have been here back when this was a working furnace. And they also have, you can't really see it, but out in the distance there's a couple of longhorn cattle out there. So it's kind of neat seeing like a working farm. And this guy just keeps walking along with me. Hi. He's so soft. Huh. Seeing the livestock is pretty cool. Alright, so now I'm in one of the tenant houses. There's 3 of them in a row here that would have been for furnace workers. So right here, I believe is the kitchen, because this looks like a big hearth for cooking stuff. Got the bar for hanging pots from. In here, looks like probably a living room of some kind, dining room. These are the only 2 rooms accessible in this little house. I think there's an upstairs, but it looks like it's blocked off. I'm not sure what that rumbling is. Some sort of fan or some kind of motor. Yeah, so there's a couple of these houses right in a row, like I said. There's 2 more right next door. So behind me is the site where the schoolhouse was for the Hopewell furnace community, where all the company kids would go. And it's long since been demolished. I think apparently it was demolished and abandoned in like the 1870s and demolished soon thereafter so they could reuse the stone. But you can still see the footprint. Parts of the foundation are still visible. Go over here, there's a partial foundation wall. So this is the last major site of the historic buildings. But I'm going to go for a little hike now, and Hopewell Furnace, the national park, is mostly surrounded by state park. So I'm going to go hit some trails and check those out. So now I'm in French Creek State Park, which immediately borders Hopewell Furnace. And I'm on the shores of Hopewell Lake, which is maybe 3/4 of a mile to the other end. I'm going to do the loop hike around it. This is actually a reservoir. There's a dam at one end. So I'm assuming it was just part of a creek at one point. It's a beautiful day for a hike, so it's nice to be out here. Came down from Syracuse for the weekend. It's just been gloomy there for like weeks, so to see the sun is a nice change of pace. So I made it to the other end of Hopewell Lake. I started down at that end, and there's a little pier coming out into the lake. That's pretty nice. It's a old Pennsylvania State Park. And there's parking down at this end. There's a little boat launch, probably for small boats. I mean, it's not that big. You're not going to get any, you're not going to go water skiing on this lake. So probably for canoes and little fishing boats or something. Alright, so I just finished the loop around Hopewell Lake, and you can see I came back to the dam, so you can see the water coming over the top right there at the spillway. So I'm going to head back into Hopewell Furnace, where my car is, and hopefully do some more hiking on the other side of the state park. I have to go back through Hopewell Furnace to get there. Just a short little trail back to the car. Alright, so I made it to the east side of French Creek State Park, and I'm just hitting some trails to wrap up the day. I'm on the Raccoon Trail right now. I'll probably do at least 2 miles or so, I think. There's a network of trails back here. I've never been here before, so this will all be new to me. I have no idea what the terrain is like, but the relief map looks like it's a little hilly with some switchbacks in a few spots. So, see what it's like. It's a little ways into the trail, and I came upon these ruins. Not sure what it is exactly. Assuming it was furnace related, something. I'm not sure. It's cool. I love old ruins like this. And it's just a couple partial walls, but still pretty cool. And there's no signage or anything, and I didn't see it labeled on my map for French Creek. So I just climbed up a small hill, nothing big. Now I'm on my way to a place called Miller's Point. I don't know if that's like an overlook or something, but I guess I'll find out when I get there. So I'm not sure if this is Miller's Point or not, but I did find this big rock pile that I'm going to climb and see what the view is from the top. So I'm at the top of the pile. It's very wooded, so there's not like a real commanding view of anything. I can see the various towns in the distance through the trees. It's early February, so of course nothing's green, so you can actually see through the forest a little bit. That's a nice little diversion. I think I'm about the farthest away from the car that I'm going to get on this hike, so I'm going to get cruising back because the sun's starting to get a little bit low. I think I have another hour and a quarter maybe of good sunlight. So, and I did not bring a light with me except for the one on my phone. I was not planning on hiking at all this weekend, so I did not prepare for it. So I do want to get back, but yeah, this was fun. Nice little bouldering spot. All these rocks. All right, so I just got back from the trails at French Creek State Park a little bit ago. Did about 2 hours of hiking, a little bit more, I think. And I thought I was going to be done in Hopewell Furnace, but I do have one more stop, which I'm in front of now. And that is Bethesda Baptist Church. So this building dates from the Revolution, actually, and it served the religious needs of the Hopewell community. It's not terribly big, but and it's got the graveyard around it. Apparently the oldest stone is from 1807, or the oldest stone that still has a legible date on it. And the most recent burial was in 1997, so not that long ago. The cemetery is closed for burials now, but apparently you can still use the church for weddings and christenings and stuff. You can get a permit for special use, but it's not open for like regular worship. I guess the congregation moved to a different location, and now the church is owned by the National Park System. But oh yeah, here's some newer looking stones. Oh, not that new. Another one from 1949. All right, so that'll wrap it up for this visit to Hopewell Furnace National Historic Site and French Creek State Park. If you liked it, hit the like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.